Day 35, and in this particular video we are going to talk about the AWS API Gateway and the demo part, correct? So in the last video we covered the theory part of the AWS API Gateway. If you are not aware, you can watch out that video. So here we are directly going towards the demo part, and in this part demo we are going to cover this architectural diagram. We will be creating one S3 bucket. Within this we will host a static website, and in this website we will be making two kind of request. That will be one get and post. That those two requests will go through this API gateway, and they will call the get lambda function, and the second one will call post lambda function. So there will be two kind of method, correct? Get method and post method. So this lambda function will help you to store the data in DynamoDB table, and the first lambda function, which will be kind of get one, that will help you to get the data from this DynamoDB table. So this will be our architecture, what we are going to cover as a part of demo. So let's directly move to the AWS console, and we will start from the here. We will first create the DynamoDB table, then we will create the lambda function, we will see the use case, and then we will create a host our application. Then the API gateway we will be creating, and then we will call this lambda function. So let me directly move to the AWS console here, and here we will be searching about DynamoDB table. So yeah, I do have this DynamoDB table console which is being loaded, and then we will be creating the demo inside that. And for the code perspective and the logic, we will be using our the GitHub repository that what I do have. And for that, if you see the table name, we are going to create this student data, correct? So this is the table name what I am going to create. This is my public GitHub repository. You can utilize it if you want. So here we are going to create one table. Let's click on the create table, and this is the name of table, correct? Student data. Partition key we will be passing as student ID, and for that let me get into the insert student data.py. And from here, if you see that we are going to use this student ID as a partition key, correct? Student ID. Let me copy this, and the same will be used for storing the data inside this. So student ID will be our primary key, or the partition key, you can say. Sort key, if you want to make the two values as a unique ID kind of thing, you can use. Otherwise it's optional. You can go with the partition key only, correct? Then moving forward, table settings, we will go with the default settings only, the table class, DynamoDB standard, and other things. Let's click on the create table, correct? So your table has been created. Now according to the diagram, once your table is created, you can get into the lambda function creation, and then we will assign the role and other details we will be assigning over here. So we do have the table now. If you get into the explore items, or the if you see anything over here, the table has been created now. Let me refresh here, and you will see some of the detail. Show the table to get started. Okay, find the table. So why I did not create it? Okay, it is over here, student data, correct? So you can see the student ID as a partition key, and as of now there is no data, correct? So you can see the item count as a 0. So now let's move towards the lambda function creation. So here I will be searching about the lambda function, lambda, and then we will create two of the lambda function, correct? So what we are going to create? We are going to create now one lambda function for the get, and second lambda function for the post kind of thing. So these two lambda function will be created. Let's click on the create function, and the function name I will be passing as get student and the data, correct? Get student data, that will be our function name. Here I will be selecting Python 3.9, and then let's get into the role creation as well. And role creation, we will go with the default one, which this AWS lambda function will itself create, and then later on we will add the permissions to this lambda function, correct? So let's go with that detail only, create function. And in this code, in this lambda function, we will have to pass the code as well, correct? Get students.py, so that this lambda function will retrieve the data from the DynamoDB table. So let's copy this code as well, and here we will paste it in the code section of the lambda function, correct? So let's wait for that, and meanwhile we can create another lambda function as well. So let me click on here, create function, and here we will be saying insert student, and let's go with the same naming convention what we are using, insert student data.py, correct? So it will be student data, insert student data. Let's select the programming language once again over here, Python 3.9, and change default execution role. Here we can use either the same role which has been created as of now, so get student data role, and in the same role we will be adding the permission because it's the IAM role, correct? It can be attached to any of the services. It's the generic one, global service, correct? So we will be attaching the permission to this role one only, and it will work for both of this lambda function, correct? I hope that you understand. If you do have any confusion regarding this, you can pin in the comment, and I'll be happy to answer you. So let's click on the create function. Meanwhile this is being created, let me update the code for this get student data. Here we will paste the code, correct? So let me just copy this code, get student data.py, and here let me update the code as well. So let's do the command V, and what will it do? It has to get into the DynamoDB resource, then it will look for the AP South 1, correct? We are in the AP South 1. If you see the region over here, we are in the S Pacific Mumbai 1. So we have to look for the AP South 1. That will be our region. Then it will look for the table called as student data. So that table we have already created. You can see the student data, correct? So it will look for that table. Then it will retrieve the data, and it will get the response from that. It will retrieve the items, and then it will print the data. Uh, it will print all these things, correct? While last evaluated k in response, then data extend response items, it will show all these things to you. For that, let me save the changes what we have done. So let me click on the deploy, and let's click on the test. Here we will require to create a new test event, correct? So let me create call as test event and save it. Click on the invoke, and probably you will see some of the executions are happening. You saw that an error occurred, access denied exception, when calling the scan operation. Why? Because as of now your lambda function does not have any permission for accessing the DynamoDB table, from where you can configure the access. So here in the configuration section, within the permission, you do have this execution role. So let's click on this execution role, and here we will have to grant the access of the DynamoDB table, correct? So for that we will attach the policy to this IAM role which has been created by the AWS Lambda itself, and to this role we will give the permissions, whatever the permissions are required or wherever it will fail. So we are going with the troubleshooting as well, correct? You can see that. So let me search for the DynamoDB, and here just for the demo purpose I am just giving the DynamoDB full access, correct? We are not going with any constant kind of thing. So the full permission has been provided to this lambda function. Now if you click on the code part, and if you click on the invoke once again, you should see response as empty. Why it's empty? Because as of now your student data does not have any of the data, correct? We have not uploaded any data. And why? Because this lambda function has to work to get the data from the DynamoDB table, but we have not pushed any data to this DynamoDB table. That's why it's resulting into empty data, correct? As you can see, the response is empty. So now we are going to create the second lambda function of what we have already created, insert student data. In this lambda function we are going to update the code once again, correct? The second code, insert student data.py. So we will just copy this one and paste the code over here. Let me just do the control V. If you want you can write down the same code, or if you want to you can write down your code as well. So here as well what we have done, we are getting into the DynamoDB resource, the service, then we will fetch the student data table, and from there we will be passing all these details in form of the JSON body, correct? And this will be saved to our table. So for that what I will have to do, I will have to copy this items, correct? So I will be just copying this, command C, and then let me save the code changes over here as well. So it's deployed. Let me click on the test, create new test event, and here I'll be calling as test here, the same. And here we need to pass this key pair value. So I will just command V, and we need to change the values over here. So for that what I will do, I will just do the, I will just change from the single quotes to the double quotes, correct? And student ID, here will be passing the value as well. So let me call it as first student, correct? Sorry, not this way. It will be first student. Then the quotes, let me fix it from here as well. And then in the name we will pass some random name. Random name can be anything. It can be your let me just call it Manish, so that will be random name. Here let me pass the quotes, double quotes. And student class can be which class you want to enter. You might be entering for 11th, correct? So let me mark it as 11. Then what's the age of this guy? So the age can be your what can be the age? Age can be anything. The 11th student guy can be of your 16, correct? So let me go with the 16. So that's the format we have already written. So let me click on the save, and your test data is saved. Now let's click on the invoke, and you should see some response. You have seen the response, student data saved successfully. So this is the response what we were expecting as well. So if you see the return body student data saved successfully, if it's the successful one, correct? What does that mean? That means this lambda function, the get one was empty with the empty response. If you see, while there were no data, when we have created the second lambda function, it was supposed to post the data. So we have already passed the data from here, and it says that the student data saved successfully. So it should save in the DynamoDB table. Let's get into the table and refresh over here. Now do you see any table any data for over here? So let me just refresh once again, and as of now there is no data. There should be a data. Where is it gone? Explore items. Okay, now you can see. Sorry, in the explore items you will see against the student data, you will see the data, correct? The student ID is 1, age 16, class 11th, and the name is Manish. So whatever the data will be passing over here, that data will reflect here, correct? There, that will be there. If now you run the lambda function for this get one, you will see that response should come here. So let me click on the invoke, and here you will see the execution will happen. It should return the data. So you can see in the here it has returned the data as well. So now this get lambda function is working, and it is retrieving the data from the DynamoDB table. So till now we have created one DynamoDB table. We have created two lambda function where it is working. It is the first one is fetching the data, second one is posting the data in the DynamoDB table. So this part is covered. Now we have to host a static website in the S3 bucket, and then we will create one API gateway, and from there we will create two kind of method, the get method and the your post method. So let's get into the S3 bucket here. S3 bucket, and here we will upload index.html file, and then the script.js, which will host a particular website in this S3 bucket. And then we will move forward to the API gateway, where we will create the get method, post method, and that will work for us, correct? So we are in the Asia Pacific region. Let's create the bucket, and the bucket name I will be passing as man demo -11. That means my favorite name because it's the unique one, correct? And I will mark my bucket as a public one only, SEL disabled, and rest of the configuration will be the default one. Let's click on the create bucket. Your bucket will be created within few seconds, and then we will get into this bucket. We will get into the properties. If you are not aware how to host a static website hosting, you can watch out the video which is already available on the channel. And here also we are going to host the static website only. So let's click on the enable. Then you need to pass index.html file name over here, index.html, and click on the save changes, correct? You got this bucket website endpoint. If you click on here, you will see the 403 forbidden, correct? What does that mean? That means it does not have access to host the static website, correct? It is not able to fetch any object which is the part of your bucket. So for that, what we will have to do, we will have to get into the bucket policy. We will have to change this policy, and for that I will have to get the bucket policy from here, correct? So from the S3 static website hosting, I'll be getting this bucket policy. I will just update this. If you are not aware why I'm doing this, so you can watch out the other videos for the S3 static website hosting, and from there you will be able to understand in detail. So let me just copy this ARN, and through this ARN and through this policy we are just telling that the objects of this bucket can be accessed publicly. That means it can host the static website, and that website can be seen from the internet side, correct? So I have just updated the ARN, resource ARN, which is the ARN for the bucket, and I will just save this policy, save changes, correct? Now if you refresh this, you will see some other error. What's the error? 404, no such key. Which key is not there? The key what you mentioned. So you mentioned that there should be index.html while configuring the static website hosting. You said that there should be index.html. Now it's not able to fetch that index.html, correct? Key index.html is not found, correct? So for that, what you need to do, you need to upload this file, correct? So let's get into the objects, click on the upload section, and click on the add files, and from here you need to get into this what called API Gateway demo, and from here we will be selecting this index.html and then script.js. Both these files I will be selecting over here, and I will upload these two files. It's done. Index.html is there. If you refresh over here once again, you see the static website which is there, student data, name, class, and age. This will fill in the details for the DynamoDB table, student ID, age, class, name, correct? So it's just mapped internally, and it will fetch the data as well. So if you click on the view all student data, it will not work. Why it will not work as of now? And even it will not save the data. Why? Because we have just hosted the S3 static website over here, correct? We have created the Lambda function DynamoDB table over here, but whatever the request, get or post, when we will fill in the data and click on the save, it will be post request, correct? When we will click on the view all student data, it will be obviously a get request, correct? But this should go through the API gateway. As of now, there is no communication between this Lambda function DynamoDB table and this S3 bucket application which is hosted over here, correct? So for that we will have to create this Amazon API Gateway. So let's get into the Amazon API Gateway now, and for that let me search the API Gateway. So here we are in the API Gateway section now. So here what we will do, we will create the API, REST APIs, correct? And in the REST API we are going to create two of the method, correct? So let me click on the build and the new API, and the new API name will be your what we say, the age optimized, and the API name will be get data, correct? Get student data, that will be our API name, correct? Or let me get into here, REST API private, yes, that's fine. So let me get into the here, get student data, that will be API. And description, I'm just going with the optional, we are not making it original, so let's go with the age optimized. Let's click on the create API, and your API has been created, correct? Let's click on the create method. Which kind of method? We want the get kind of, correct? And Lambda function, because we have to work with the Lambda function in the Amazon API Gateway, we have to work with the Lambda function, so we'll be selecting the Lambda function itself. In which region we do have the Lambda function? All the activity we are doing in the AP South one only. So I'm just selecting get student data, integration timeout, method request settings, all these things will be default one. We are not going to change anything over here, correct? So let me just click on the create method, and your method has been created for the get one, correct? So you can see get method has been created. If you click on the deploy API, you can select the new stage, and the stage name you can give as a prod, correct? Click on the deploy, and here your API has been created. Now let me go to the where have I gone? Okay, so API get student data and the get. Within the get you can click on the test, and here just click on the test. Let's see if you are able to get anything over here or not. So you got the data, correct? Student ID 1, name Manish, class 11, age 16. So that's the data you got, correct? So what you have configured as of now, we have created Amazon API Gateway, one API. There we have created one get method, and that get method is able to communicate through Amazon DynamoDB table, and it's getting coordinated with the Amazon DynamoDB table, correct, and it's fetching the data. Now we'll be creating second method, that will be our post method, correct. So let me go to the API gateway, and here I'll be clicking on this API. Let's come back and get student data, and then API action. Let me click on the create method. Here I'll be selecting the method as a post method, correct. Lambda function, I'll be selecting the second one, insert student data, and rest of the details will be the same. Create method, and that method has been saved. Let's click on the API deploy API prod, and let's click on this deploy. Create a stage. So a stage, I think we have already created. Yes, prod stage we have already created. Now we need to pass this invoke URL of the stage to our code. So let me go get into the VS Code here. So in this VS Code, while writing the script.js, we have passed the API endpoint here, correct. So let me just change this value to the invoke function, correct. So HTTPS, and this is the API, this is the invoke URL for our API gateway, correct. So let me go once again over here, and if you see here, it's the invoke URL for our prod stage for the APIs, correct. So we are just passing this what do you say, the invoke URL in our script.js, and this will invoke the Lambda function further, correct. This Amazon API gateway will work in that. So this is script.js is the part of our application, correct, index.html. So this index.html, if you see once again, we do have this page, correct. This page is hosted within the S3 bucket. This S3 bucket has the index.html and script.js as well, correct. So script.js will is having the Amazon API gateway invoke URL, that will invoke Amazon API gateway. Amazon API gateway, according to the request, get or post, it will invoke the Lambda function. Then it will get into the DynamoDB table, and either it will get the data or post the data, correct. So let me get into this script.js. Let me save it, and once again I will just update this what we call the file itself in the S3 bucket. I will re-upload this script.js. So let me click on the upload, add files, and here I will re-upload this script.js. Click on the upload, and your script.js is uploaded once again. Let me click on the save. Here if I click on the view all students, it says error retrieving student data, correct. If I click once again it says error retrieving data. Let me see what's the error. So for that I will have to do option shift I, command option I, yes. So let me get into the network, let me refresh, view all students, prod 403, and pre-fight CORS error. Okay, so for that I will have to enable CORS as well in this where is that CORS related things. Let me get into this API get student data and enable CORS to make the communication through the different services, through the different APIs. We will have to enable this CORS as well. So let me save this, and once it will be saved, correct, deploy API, it's already deployed to the prod. Let me click on the deploy, it's already deployed. Now if I do the same thing once again, let me click on the view student data. Once again it's getting into which error, 403, correct. So let me research network, click on the view. Now you can see the data, correct. It was taking a time. Now you can see 1 Manish 11 16. So as of now we do have only one data which is present in this DynamoDB table, correct. So that you can see. If I try to fit some of the data in this, so let me give any random name. So it might be any random name, that might be your friend's name. Let's say that what's the name. So let me go with the name Rakesh, class 12th, your senior one, or the age. What's the age? Let me call it 17. Save student data. Your data has been saved. Student data saved. That's the response you got, and this is the response which was expected. The student data saved successfully. Correct. Let's get into the DynamoDB table. Let's refresh, and you will be able to see the second entry over here as well. If I click on the view student data, you will be able to see those two details as well. Let's insert one more, and here I'm just passing as 3, and then any random name. I'm just giving as a Saloni. Just suppose it might be C might be your friend or someone else, and the class will be called as 10th, correct, and age just suppose that 15. Click on the save student data. Your data has been saved, and let's refresh in the DynamoDB table. You will see the third, 15, 10th Saloni, correct. Then if you refresh over here, view all student data, you are able to see. If you are getting any issue during this correct error kind of thing, you can directly do the inspect kind of thing. If you are working on Windows or to this Mac where on any of the system, you can directly get into the inspect. You can troubleshoot according to the error in the similar way what I did, and I just forgot to enable this CRS, correct. So for that I just enabled the CRS according to the error itself. So this is how you can deploy your API gateway. This is how you can utilize the API gateway concept. You can create different methods. You can create the Lambda function. You can work with the Amazon DynamoDB table. You can host your S3 static website, and this will altogether enable you to host your application to get or post the data into DynamoDB table or the RDS instances wherever you want to. Correct. So this is what all I wanted to cover in this particular video. For more technical contents and the DevOps related content, stay tuned with the channel. Subscribe to the channel. That will motivate me to create more and more content. Till the time, thank you. Bye bye.